Tynecastle Park is a football stadium located in the Gorgie area of Edinburgh, Scotland. Tynecastle Park is the current home to Heart of Midlothian FC, or commonly known as Hearts. Hearts itself was formed in 1874, in which the club initially played at sites in the Meadows, Powburn, and Powder Hall. However, by 1881, the club had moved into the Gorgie area. In the initial move, the club played in what is now considered to be Old Tynecastle. As just 5 short years later, in 1886, the club moved just across Gorgie Road to settle at the present site of Tynecastle Park. Hearts' first game at Tynecastle Park took place on April 10, 1886, in which the club hosted Bolton Wanderers for a friendly. By the 1891 season, Hearts had been relatively successful, but that season was a big step for the club as they won the Scottish Cup, which helped the club fund improvements for the ground, in which they decided to build a new clubhouse with the prize money. In 1892, Tynecastle hosted its first international match, as the ground hosted a 6-1 Scotland victory over Wales. However, only 1,200 fans were able to attend the match due to a snowstorm that had hit Edinburgh, and many spectators that had tickets thought the game would be postponed as a result. In addition to the new clubhouse, 1892 saw more stadium improvements, as the original south stand saw a roof constructed on it that year. By 1895, Tynecastle Park hosted a World Championship match between Sunderland, who won the English Football League First Division, and Hearts, who won the Scottish League Championship. The match ended in a 5-3 loss to Sunderland. However, Tynecastle would again host another World Championship match in 1902, when Hearts were able to beat Tottenham Hotspur by a score of 3-1. Tynecastle Park slowly started to see more and more developments, as when the stadium originally opened, there were 2 wooden stands with a capacity of around 10,000 spectators. But by 1903, a small stand and pavilion were built, and by 1906, the banks of the terracing was greatly increased and the capacity was around 62,000, or an estimated 62,000. By 1911, a covered enclosure was built on the western distillery side of the ground, and by 1914, 2 old stands and pavilion were replaced with a pitch-length grandstand, which make up what is now the present-day main stand. An interesting aspect of the construction of this grandstand comes from the fact that in order to pay for some of the cost, the club sold forward Percy Dawson to Blackburn Rovers for an at-the-time record of £2,500. Dawson, from 1911 to 1914, had made 80 appearances for Hearts, scoring a total of 63 goals for the club. By 1926, Hearts was able to purchase Tynecastle, meaning the club would no longer have to rent the ground. And by 1932, after more improvements were built upon the terraces, the record attendance was set, as 52,396 spectators were in attendance for a Scottish Cup match between Hearts and Rangers. With the expansions, Tynecastle sat tightly squeezed on 3 of the 4 sides, and as a result, Hearts briefly considered moving to Murrayfield Stadium, which had opened in 1925. The club also considered building and moving to a new ground in Sighthill, but the start of the Second World War put an end to any of these discussions. This meant that no further developments were done until the post-war years, so by 1951, the terraces began to be concreted. And by 1954, Tynecastle Park became the first all-concrete stadium in Scotland. As a result of all this modernization, the stadium architects stated the capacity was 54,359, but for safety reasons, the club capped ticket sales at 49,000 for big matches. By 1957, floodlights were added to Tynecastle, and by 1958, along the distillery side and the northwest corner of the ground, a roof was constructed. In a similar vein to the additions just before the First World War, the work was partially covered by the sale of Dave Mackay for £32,000 to Tottenham. Mackay played 135 matches for Hearts, in which he scored 25 goals, and went on to be a crucial part of the Tottenham squad, in which he played 268 matches and scored 42 goals for the club. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, due to the financial situation at the club, there really wasn't much in terms of extra funds to spend developing the ground. And with the club being relegated 3 times from the Premier Division in the late 70s and stretching into the early 80s, it looked like it would be some time before Tynecastle would see a major development. This is not to say that the 80s did not see any changes at Tynecastle, as by 1985 the capacity of the ground was cut to around 29,000, when the distillery covered terrace and the main stand paddock had benches installed. Like many grounds across the United Kingdom, due to the Taylor Report, Hearts would be required to develop Tynecastle to an all-seater stadium by August of 1994. As a result, Hearts entered discussions with Hibernian and local authorities, but none of the sites that were suggested were suitable. By 1991, Hearts had submitted a proposal for a 30,000 all-seater stadium at Miller Hill, in the southeast of Edinburgh. The bid was supposed to include offices, a hotel, a supermarket, restaurants, and a business park. However, the bid was rejected the same year. Building a ground in Hermiston was also suggested, but similar to Miller Hill, it was also rejected. This rejection meant that Hearts would need to commit to redeveloping Tynecastle instead of building a new ground, and in 1994, the entire western and northern sides of the ground were demolished, which allowed for the construction of the Wheatfield Stand in 1994 and the Roseburn Stand in 1995. The club added temporary seating in the Gorgie Road end terracing, and by 1997 the terracing was demolished and replaced with the Gorgie Stand. Also, during the process of this redevelopment, the ground was renamed from Tynecastle Park to Tynecastle Stadium. However, by 2004, the future of Tynecastle was up in the air, as the CEO at the time, Chris Robinson, announced his intention to sell Tynecastle, as he claimed the ground was not fit for purpose. The plan was to have Hearts rent Murrayfield from the Scottish Rugby Union. However, this move was so unpopular that a Save Our Hearts campaign was set up in order to block the move. The sale was ultimately cancelled when Vladimir Romanov purchased the club at the start of 2005. The first change under Romanov was to alter the pitch size to meet the standards of UEFA, which meant that the lowest rows of seating in the Gorgie and Roseburn stands would need to be removed, which reduced the capacity from 18,000 to 17,420. This takes us to December of 2015, when plans to redevelop the main stand started to be entertained, as Hearts owner Anne Budge said that they intended to commence work as soon as possible. The plans were submitted to Edinburgh City Council March of 2016, which proposed a new 7,000 all-seater stand, which would include a nursery, space for a new club shop, a ticket office, and an administrative office. Construction began near the end of the 16-17 season, and construction was completed November 19, 2017, after some delay, in a league match against Partick Thistle. 2017 also saw the club state their intention to rename the stadium back to Tynecastle Park upon completion of this stand. Currently, Tynecastle consists of 4 sections: the Gorgie Stand, the main stand, the Wheatfield Stand, and the Roseburn Stand, and the stadium currently has a capacity of 19,852. I'm personally happy that many of the plans to move Hearts failed, as the layout and style is very nice and is almost what I first think of when I imagine a football stadium. And to have played at the ground so long, it would have been quite a shame to have left. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it to be informative and entertaining. If you liked it, please consider liking the video, commenting, and subscribing. And please give me more suggestions for stadiums you'd like to see in a video going forward. I hope you have a great day.